I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands wherever you may be listening from and wherever my guests are joining from too. Sovereignty was never ceded. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jenuine Conversations. Today I'm joined by Kirsten Lee, a design educator, industry liaison, I love that word, and founding member of Fashion Revolution Australia and New Zealand. With over 15 years in the fashion and design education space, Kirsten has been a driving force helping the next generation of creatives navigate their careers. In this episode, we explore what it means to build a values-led creative career, and Kirsten shares her take on teaching with intention. We talk about the role of ethics in design as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kirsten.
It's so lovely to be here, and it's just really nice to stay in contact across borders of states, interstate.
Yes, definitely, for sure. I think that's like the only one good thing about COVID, taught us like video chats, and it's such a good way to stay in touch with people. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, what I wanted to do to begin with was just have a bit of a chat with you about, your career to date. So if you could give me an elevator pitch of, how you got to where you are now, that would be amazing. And we can go from there.
Sure, no problem. Well, as I tell many of my students that I'm currently helping get industry placement, I actually started off in the industry through my placement that I conducted I went to UTS for my visual communication degree, and my first placement was at a tiny, tiny little textile studio in Surrey Hills, and I used to just walk there after class, and it was just such an amazing experience to be sort of involved in the industry for the first time and not be asked to get coffees, but actually engaged in screen printing, sewing, making, all of the kinds of things that I was really interested in. And they actually asked me to stay on and keep working there, which I think happens a lot with placements, which is why I'm so passionate about industry placement as a great first step for students after graduation. And so I worked there as a studio assistant for about a year, and then I conducted my second placement up in Byron Bay, which is where I live now, and I did 2 months of placement at another textiles business that was the first carbon neutral company in the Southern Hemisphere. So a really big deal at a time in the early 2000s when that was not even a thing. And I firsthand got to see how a really sustainable business was run, from solar panel, running all of the energy in the space, in the studio, to using water-based dyes, organic fabrics, reclaimed fabrics, zero waste pattern making. That's where I first learned how to do that. And reclaiming all of the fabric, none of it went to landfill. And I was told that at the end of that placement, if I was interested, when they opened a studio in Surrey Hills in Sydney, down the track, would I be interested in being the studio leader? And that actually happened a few years later. They contacted me and said, "Are you still interested?" And I jumped at it. Yes, I was. And I worked there for, I think, 3 years. And that led me to apply for another job at a very large international fashion brand that I will not name, but it was a really great experience. Lovely people, amazing, designing prints and garments for huge international distribution. So that kind of exposure for my designs was incredible, and learning the process of designing multiple ranges at that speed was incredible as well. However, I started to see the impact on the environment, and we'd open boxes of samples and just smell the chemicals coming out. I heard about the shadow factories overseas. I heard about the layoffs onshore because this was previously an Australian-made brand. And I won't go into too many details, but basically I left that job because I it didn't sit right with me, and it actually led me to join Fashion Revolution in terms of the first team over 11 years ago now formed in the UK. And my friend Mel contacted me and said, would you like to start the second team in the world with me here in Australia? So we started the first Australia-New Zealand team here, and then teams spread all over the world within that first year of Fashion Revolution. And from that point on, I became really passionate about staying within ethical fashion design and production, and worked for incredible designers like Akira Isagawa, and working with the Social Studio in Melbourne, the Social Outfit in Sydney, and quite a few other designers, but basically really staying within those ethics. And then fell into teaching casually at university, and was told that it was okay to bring ethics into the classroom, even though that's not specifically what I was teaching, because that wasn't a thing at the time. And over time became passionate about that becoming my main career path. So kind of transitioned into full-time academia, and did my master's research in ethical fashion pedagogy, and have really focused on that since then. So I'm currently waiting to hear back about my application for a PhD at UTS in ethical fashion pedagogy to take that further. And just looking at moving into a new role in that space in the next few months as well. So really passionate about ethical fashion design and education as a tool for change. So yeah, that's a summary, I guess, of that story.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I guess, we can say, before the pod, we were sort of talking about, kind of blending in ethics into the sort of work that you do as a creative, because without getting too ranty, we live in a capitalistic society. It is what it is. But I think having that sort of opportunity to, do something that's more ethically driven, if you've got the opportunity, I think is great, because I can imagine that would be something where it would be a bit of a struggle when you're early on, because you're just sort of going to go into whatever is available when you're a recent graduate and sort of things like that. I guess on that sort of topic, like what kind of advice do you sort of give your students that are looking to sort of move into design or fashion, and want to sort of do something a bit more kind of ethically led? Like what kind of advice do you give from there?
100%. Well, I think it's always admirable when they do, and I commend them on that. That's the first thing, is just how great it is that they care and are aware of these issues. I feel like it's getting better with each generation. However, I think in my experience, there's nothing that's lost. Like I think a lot of students, one of your other questions, I think, that I saw previously was about students not knowing where they want to go as well, in terms of where they want to work. And I think there's no experience that's wasted. And like for me, working in a brand where they were incredibly unsustainable, that was experience for me, and it helped me understand the problem better. So I mean, even if students come in saying, oh, I want to work in an ethical department of whatever discipline it is that they're studying, that's great, and I would love to encourage them to find that kind of work. But even if they don't, it's all leading to experience of what is the problem and then what is the solution. So I think understanding the problem firsthand is incredibly important. And I know that I've learned so much from having had that experience firsthand. But in terms of getting work within ethical areas of the industry, it probably depends on the industry, but speaking mainly from fashion and graphic design, which is primarily my area of expertise, I find that the ethical companies are the ones that are smaller most often, and they are really looking for help and support. So that's almost an easier way to get your foot in the door, is to approach those brands. And many brands that are doing the right thing are looking for support because they are sort of a smaller brand or more bespoke brand. So it isn't actually that hard, I think. And that's why I believe that I ended up as my two first placements unintentionally being in innately ethical businesses, not even knowing what that meant back then, and just stumbling into it because they were really teeny tiny textile brands that just needed support. And I always say to my students, when you're getting a placement, look for a brand that is really big, that has a big name, it looks good on your CV, you can kind of just have it there to look great and everybody knows who that is, even if you're just getting coffees. But then choose a smaller brand that you can really get your hands dirty, and they won't just get you to make coffees because they actually need all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And that will just, that people might not know what the name means on your CV. They might be like, who's that? But you've had incredible experience and you can put that on your CV. It looks excellent because then you've really had hands-on experience of designing at that company. But yeah, just in terms of ethical production elsewhere, I really do feel with film, audio, some of the other disciplines I work with students at the moment, when I've seen them go out and seek work placement, quite a few of the bigger companies in those areas are looking to operate in a more ethical way. So with film companies, there is an awareness of inclusion, diversity, and representation, and all of these issues that are really important. I feel like they're becoming a bit more understood and implemented. So not just social washing and greenwashing, but actually implementing these ideals into their companies. That's not all companies, but quite a few are. Thank goodness. So I think they're out there, and I think for the students that do want them, they're there, and it's just about doing your research, identifying them, and hitting them up. And I have a very special process I help my students go through to sort of approach the brand and sort of keep following up. Benign harassment, we call it. Just keep saying, hi, I'm really interested in the role. It usually works. So
you've got to get in front of people.
I think that's the thing. A lot of students seem to be very nervous to follow up, and I think that's, if I've learned anything in my experience, it's following up in a really nice, friendly way. Obviously, you don't want to over-harass the person, but just following up. People are busy. They really appreciate you reminding them, hey, I'm here. Like, especially if a role comes up or a position, an opening comes up, you're just reminding them that you're really keen. And I think people really appreciate that when they're busy. I think a lot of companies will get back to people and be like, oh, we'll keep your CV on hand for the future if anything comes up. And I'm not sure how many companies actually check that folder or go through all of those old CVs. So I think it's really important for those students to keep approaching them and reminding them, hey, I'm still here, I'm still available.
Yeah, definitely. Nothing wrong with some benign harassment. I like that term.
It's great. It's very effective. I can't tell you how many jobs I've actually gotten from doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I know a job or two I've gotten in my time by just like, hi, just coming through.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. It was funny actually where I met you in Melbourne at my last work teaching fashion. I had my eye on this particular college for years because they were they were the first place in Australia to teach sustainable fashion as a subject. And I would email through my updated CV on LinkedIn to the program coordinator or the program lead, I should say, every, I think, 6 months or something. And one day, funnily enough, I was already moving to Melbourne and filling up petrol in my car and got this message saying, are you coming to Melbourne anytime soon by chance, because we have a role? And I was like, well, I'm actually driving there right now. I'm moving there. So I was able to come in the next day for an interview and went really well.
Yeah, that's incredible. It might sound like a touch woo-woo, but I'm very big on, I guess, sort of manifesting and kind of setting, sort of an intention and a purpose behind what you're doing. Because I feel like you're a good example of that, where you worked somewhere where maybe it was a bit more fast fashion-y, and that gave you all the sort of, I guess, the insider knowledge of like, okay, this is exactly what it looks like and this is how detrimental it is. Cool, I can bring that knowledge now, and then that's therefore a transferable skill now that I'm working with more sort of ethical brands. So that's, really helpful advice, I think, to give anyone early on. It might be a brand you're not super keen on working with, but if they're a big enough name brand, it always looks good on a CV, and then you can kind of target those more kind of smaller places where it's in more alignment in terms of what you're after and what you're sort of looking to do kind of longer term. Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. And that's it. And I think at that early stage in a career, it's about keeping the options open, in my opinion, and not getting too narrow in terms of, oh, well, I only want to work in ethical fashion, so I'm only going to work from the start in ethical fashion, and just being open to what's possible and available at the time. But that intention, like you say, that manifestation goal is always there, and it will happen. I really believe that. And that's the thing, is having the skills to then get that role, and it will come.
Yeah, definitely.
Working towards it.
Yeah. And what's your sort of take, I guess, when it comes to, sort of personal kind of branding, I guess, for your students? Like, I think that's something that's really sort of growing. A lot of businesses have awareness of their own business's sort of personal brand. But as an individual, when you're sort of early on in your career, and you might have these really good intentions to work in sort of, sustainable kind of environments and things like that. But when you want to be yourself, finding that sort of balance of being true to who you are, but also being, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, like palatable to, sort of, different companies out there in the job market. Like, what kind of advice do you have in that sort of balancing act for students? And
let me just check, by personal branding, do you mean like how someone dresses and their letterhead, their LinkedIn page, social media? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say all those sort of pieces kind of, fall into sort of personal branding. Like I'm an example of someone where I stay very true to who I am in terms of appearance. It's been tricky in the past, I know that for sure. The world's a bit more progressive now, but yeah. Definitely. And I love that you brought that up, because I think you're a great example of that. And I think, we're living in a really different time now. I know when I got my first tattoo, that comes out of my sleeve, my mom was like, oh, you'll never get a job. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what world you're living in, but in fashion, it's actually fine. Yeah, definitely.
But that's the thing. I think different industries are different, unfortunately, and it probably depends what industry. But with creative industries, I think I could probably safely say, generally, that across all of them, you're pretty safe to be confident to express yourself, and that maybe more in corporate and government and other areas you would have to kind of tone it down a little bit. But obviously, creative industries, that's an asset. So showing that you are a creative person, you think outside the box, that you're not afraid to challenge and you don't always want to fit in, that is an asset, and that's a soft skill that is sought after. So definitely. I think definitely that is something you want to show off. And I think the main thing I can think of in relevance to that is being a poor student, because I know not everybody goes through this, but many students have zero money. I remember I didn't even have enough money to eat most of the time, and I'd eat the free sushi from my workplace. So I really think that, in terms of personal branding, in terms of clothes and how you look, really it can be about just, whatever you do have and how you style it, and potentially looking at YouTube videos or TikToks on really creative ways that you can style what you have or dress it up a little bit and present yourself in a different way now that you're stepping out into the professional world, I guess. Because I know for me, being a student, I dressed a lot more down than I would potentially now, depending on where I am. But yeah, I think definitely thinking of maybe a color palette for yourself. A color palette is my first step for any creative process is, what's my color palette? Keeping it really nice and simple. Your colors can be your brand. And I think we talked about your color palette before with Creative Natives. It's so beautiful, the pink and the blue. And it is iconic. Like, you can actually just see those colors now, and that's what I think of is Creative Natives. And there's so many colors that refer to different brands, the purple for Violet Crumble and red for many food brands. And I think, your color, personally, I wear the magenta lipstick. I think I've been wearing this for many years, and this is kind of my trademark. Along with, I usually have black framed glasses that I wear as well. So I've got a little bit of a brand going, but that took me a few years to develop. And I absolutely try to have those colours follow through on my social media and LinkedIn pages. So the pink is a big feature, and I know pink is very fashion friendly, so I don't know if I would choose pink if I was in another industry, but definitely pink is fine for fashion. So it is my favourite colour, and I love what it kind of represents emotionally. And it's about kind of putting forward, thinking about how I'm presenting myself. So, choosing the banner, the photo for my social media in a way that communicates that color palette, but also what vibe do I want to give as well. And I think for me, it's a fun, playful, happy and engaging vibe, especially as an educator. I really like to make sure that my students are having fun, and I actually personally believe if we're not having fun, we're not learning. We're not going to remember anything. So that is really where my personal branding comes from. But yeah, it depends what kind of message you're trying to send through visual language. So thinking about that and being intentional with it. And all of that's for free. It's just the clothes. Like, as a poor student, I think I really struggled with, how do I look more professional when I go to work or to an interview, and really going to the op shops when I can, getting different pieces and seeing how I can dress them up and style them differently really helped me.
Yeah, definitely. I think, whenever I've spoken to people that are sort of early on in their careers, like whenever the wardrobe sort of question comes up, I'm like, when in doubt, put a blazer over the top and just make sure everything's neat and tidy and you should be okay,
A blazer. When in doubt, wear a blazer. I agree.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And it's, so it's not to sort of put pressure on anyone, I guess, sort of early on. It's already, nerve-wracking when you've just graduated and you're looking to interview and things like that. Just sort of finding something that represents you. I'd say when in doubt, go smart casual, unless you're going for something super duper corporate, of course. But that's my sort of general kind of tips. And check out the op shops or borrow from a friend kind of thing if you need to, for sure.
Definitely. And I think that definitely when I'm at work, I want to be comfortable, but I want to dress up. So it's really about finding those pieces that fit well and I'm not going to be uncomfortable in, because there's nothing more unbearable than sitting through a meeting in really tight pants or really tight shirt and you're like, I can't move. So definitely. Thinking about, how is the fit? What are the fabrics? Are they comfortable? And investing in those pieces that really will carry me through. And, I love them. They fit well. They sit well on my body. And I'm going to keep reaching them for, another 10 years, hopefully, rather than, like we're saying, buying unsustainably and buying something that I'm not going to wear for more than a few months because it itches and it doesn't sit right. And I don't know, that kind of thing. just really uncomfortable.
Yes, no, I totally get that. I'm very attached to my wardrobe, so I can't imagine letting go of something in a couple of months. But yeah, that's why I'm very big on buying things that I know are from sustainable brands, or buying from op shops. Even if it's not a sustainable brand, at least I rescued it from landfill if I grabbed it from an op shop, that kind of thing. Yeah, for sure.
So great. And I even at the moment, looking to my next role, where I'm moving to back in Sydney, I've been thinking ahead and just looking on Depop. And, on Depop, there's some really great designer brands for really cheap. And I can get, a beautiful blazer, matching pants, and really make sure that I get myself a nice wardrobe before I even hit the new role. So I've already prepared myself with that branding, definitely. I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I love Depop as well. That's a great resource.
It's the best.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Amazing. And it's actually really kind of like a little community, like the amount of people I've made friends with just from, we have the same taste, so I'll constantly buy off them or something, or the same size. It's really great community building.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess to sort of, summarize things, and not so much to summarize things, sorry, as my final kind of question, I wanted to ask, and this is a bit of a cliche one that I like to ask, it will probably come up in some other episodes as well. If you were to sort of look back to your younger self, what kind of advice would you give, Kirsten, 10 or 15 years ago, when you were sort of first starting off your career? And what do you feel like you've learned, with where you are now overall?
Oh, I might cry. That's a great question. That's a beautiful question. And it's so on point for where I'm at the moment, having just landed a dream role and, looking at starting my PhD when I was a student. I actually didn't really finish the HSC, and I didn't think that I could get into university. I went back to TAFE and got a portfolio together to enter my bachelor degree as a maturity student. And I did that part-time and really struggled for many years being a poor student through that. I did honours, and then took over 8 years to do my master's, long distance, living in Sydney down to Melbourne. And I really, each time, didn't think I'd get there, you know what I mean? And also having chosen such a niche industry to work in, going from fashion and then into fashion academia, it's the nichest industry and there aren't many roles. It's really niche, and there's 100 people at least up for each role that goes up worldwide, and you're up against all these people who've done their PhD long ago, have done all this research, they're really innately academic. There's a lot of requirements. So you don't have to just be a good fashion designer and have that history of working in the industry. You need to have all of this research behind you and all of these other sides. So, and it's funny because even when you're working on master's research or whatever research, people always ask, oh, what are you designing? What are you making? So you're expected to be a full-time academic, also research, and also design and make. So it's really a lot. So I guess for myself, I would go back and say, don't give up, because there have been so many times where it just felt so hard. I'd get to the final round of interviews, think I was getting the job, and I didn't. Someone else got it because they had way more experience in one of those areas than me. So I can't even tell you how many interview processes I've been through in my life. Just so many. And so many dream jobs that I almost got. And, thinking I wouldn't ever finish my master's research, all of that. And just so many times wanting to give up on the whole thing and think, what am I doing? I should just quit my job, become a barista and live the van life in Byron Bay. What am I doing? This is crazy. And my mom constantly said to me, don't give up. Like, one day you'll get the right fit for you. And rejection is redirection kind of vibes. And I found that when I didn't give up, something came through, was the next dream role. And eventually got there with the masters. It wasn't perfect, but I got there, and I learned all of these tips and tricks to getting through that process, which hopefully, I'm hoping one day I become a supervisor so I can help someone else get through that process.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing, is anything we struggle with, we can actually help others with. So my process of having struggled through my bachelor's degree and to even get into it, I think makes me a better teacher in terms of being able to help struggling students and understand where they're coming from and encourage them and cheerlead them. And yeah, I guess for me, I would go back in time and tell myself all of that and just say, this is all for a good reason and you don't want to give up because the best is coming.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. And I love that it ends with the best is coming. That's for sure. Like it's hard when you're in the trenches of it and it just feels like, oh, why am I doing this? Wanting to sort of give up. But I think, like rejection is redirection. I like that. I'm gonna use that quote moving forward. It's a good one to have.
100%. And I guess just to add one more thing, if I may, I was thinking with creative students, the thing I think that really can be a challenge, which is what I found, is choosing something that is quite niche and thinking, well, so many other people are doing this, why am I even trying? And for me, the fact that it is such a niche area means that once I eventually do get that role in it, it's so much more special. And it is something that I'm so passionate and in love with. And I would do this job even if I wasn't paid for it, if I didn't have to pay rent or mortgage.
Yes.
Basically, it's worth it because I think that's the thing, is it is a niche area. So people who stick with it, while other people might drop off because they get to that point too where they're like, well, I give up because this is too hard. And the people who do stick with it will get there and they'll be the ones that get those roles. Yeah. So it's worth it.
Yes, definitely, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your insights. It's been super fun chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.